having me.
A very warm welcome to the Leaders of Tomorrow Vodcast, your go-to series for unfiltered conversations with entrepreneurs shaping the future of business. I'm Ritwika Gupta, and today we are stepping into the fast-evolving world of retail, tech, and the constant race to keep up with how India shops. Fynd has been at the center of that shift, blurring the lines between online and offline long before it became mainstream. Today's conversation with Farooq Adam, founder of Fynd, is really about what it takes to build and stay relevant in an ecosystem that's evolving faster than ever. Farooq, welcome to the Leaders of Tomorrow Vodcast. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first things first, tell me why the name Fynd? Fynd with a Y. What does it mean? Who came up with it? What does it signify?
So it's actually a very nice origin story. So the company was not called Fynd. So we started with the company, and that's the name of the legal entity is called ShopSense.
Right.
So when we started in 2012, we thought, we're going to bring technology to make shopping sensational, and that's how we named the company ShopSense. Between 2012 till 2015, we were running with both the brand name and the legal entity called ShopSense. In 2015, we moved from an enterprise retail technology company to a hyperlocal fashion marketplace. And at that point of time, we were kind of thinking out, we're going to rebrand it and recall it something.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of names, and in the end, we were kind of stuck with two names. And at that point of time, it was a cool Valley twist where everything was getting renamed with a Y instead of an I. Right. There was Lift, there was List, and we said, okay, we're going to be Fynd, and that's how we became Fynd, and that's how the brand name Fynd was made. And we also thought, we could make it like a verb, right? Just the way you would Google it. I said, why not find it? Luckily, the names kind of stuck around, and everyone kind of enjoyed it. And now when we power retail for so many organizations, they keep finding us.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. But tell me, Farooq, when you were building Fynd, I think it was at a time when fashion and retail brands, they were just about getting familiar with digital commerce. So what did you see in the market which perhaps other brands, underestimated, or other businesses underestimated?
So when we started in 2012, prior to that, I used to work in a big data consulting company in the US. And in the US, all the retailers were really scared of Amazon. Amazon was really taking away significant market share, and offline retailers, traditional retailers, had to really figure out how to compete. And when we started solving that problem in the US, we kind of realized the data silos that exist in an organization do not allow them to compete with an online retailer, and especially someone as sophisticated as Amazon. So that was kind of the real problem that we identified. When we started working with retailers in India, we kept explaining to them, right? I mean, you sell products only when customers walk into your stores.
Right.
Why not allow them to buy from wherever they can? And that problem that we started in 2012 continues to be the core foundation on which we build the whole organization. We take all the data sources, make it internet discoverable, and then allow them to do whatever they want using that.
Now you sit at the intersection of retail, technology, logistics, consumer behavior. But tell me, at the core of it, what business are you actually in?
We started with the basics of being a technology company. It's only now we have now added another dimension to that. We are going to be a frontier technology company. We are a technology company because we like doing technology, right? And we use technology to make both our enterprise customers as well as end consumers' lives better, right? I mean, that's kind of the simple core mission. And of course, we have our own distinct vantage point of how we want the problem to be articulated and solved. And with AI in the last few years, we have only accelerated our vision. Things which we assumed will take another decade to get solved are now getting solved.
Right. Now, you operate both in the B2B and the consumer-facing spaces, right? What's harder to build in India, consumer technology or enterprise technology?
Both are equally hard. The problem with consumer technology is that it is a hyper-competitive space. There always seems to be someone with bucket loads of money to acquire customers, and it's a never-ending battle among commerce companies to acquire customers.
Yeah.
Enterprise technology while the market exists, the appetite to pay for that is significantly tough. We have a large ramp down from large enterprises to mid-size enterprises. Technology budgets in most mid-size organization, I'm saying like 500 to 1,000 crore sort of enterprises, is very small. So a few years back, when we were looking at the market, we thought, enterprise SaaS in India is not going to be a real big market. Hence, we started opening up and bringing our technology across the world. So we kind of last few years been expanding our footprint and serving customers across the globe. There we feel we're getting real value for the technology that we have made. For Indian customers, we have now started to change our business model, and we are saying that software is going to be essentially free. It's going to be free because building it is significantly cheaper, and we're going to build software which is going to be very malleable, right? We don't want to put you in a spot where you have to buy some standard software, and then you will find a bunch of things which are not compatible with your business. So we say we're going to build malleable software on our systems of record. But what we will do is we will charge you based on outcomes.
Sure.
So is that we make only money when you make money. And I think that's a fundamental business model innovation, which is getting a lot of good traction.
Right, and I just want to pick up from there because you started Fynd in 2012. We are in 2026 right now. How has your vision, evolved, since the last 14 years or so? And if you were to start Fynd today, what would you do differently?
Things that have changed since 2012. In 2012, we were really constrained by the amount of problems we could solve. And then we were constrained by the team size that we could afford, given the problems that we were going to solve. In 2026, I believe we are unconstrained in our ambitions, right? Okay. We can build anything in the software world. Now we are starting to build anything in the physical world. Now that I want to start again in 2026, I think the big change would be I'll want to hire more fearless people, right? I mean, if we have more fearless people, there's unlimited TAM. There's no limit to our ambition.
Absolutely. And just, fashion and retail businesses, I think they have also seen a massive transformation over the last few years, be it AI, which you just mentioned, or, there was this whole e-commerce optimism. Now there's personalization, creator commerce as well. Tell me, what do you think will really define the next decade for retail?
I think the big change now that will happen is that you can cost effectively do it.
Okay.
Right? What would be not possible a few years back, like mass customization, mass personalization, were kind of tough problems to solve because you could not make money out of it. But now you could, right? I mean, there's one, project that we are running in which we are trying to make the factory itself automated, right? So you go, stand, get your measurements, and then we make clothes for you in an autonomous manner. So the cost of someone taking your measurement goes away. The cost of actually running the factory for one person, because it's automated, it really does not, change my supply chain so much. So a lot of these ambitious ideas, which, people always wanted to do, they can now attempt and do it.
What's your take on quick commerce? Because this obsession with immediacy, with, deliveries under 10 to 15 minutes, do you think it is sustainable, or do you think we are just creating unrealistic expectations for consumers?
2 points around quick commerce. First of all, I think it's a great thing. By far it's a great thing. Right? When we were trying to attempt to do it in 2015-16, right, we didn't have the delivery logistics and dark store network. So our fastest delivery used to be like 90 minutes. And I think we should give full credit to Zepto for really pushing that model. So geniuses to really attempt and scale it to what it is, and everyone else kind of followed. Sustainable, not sustainable. Most e-commerce models in India are unsustainable, right? It doesn't matter whether it's quick commerce or anyone. You can open anyone's P&L and you'll realize no money is being made by anyone. Probably the ad guys are making money. Probably Facebook, Google end up making money, but no one else ends up making money. Now that's kind of the good part of quick commerce, right? Everyone's kind of habituated. I don't think you can go back to living in a more planned manner. You now have moved into an unplanned life, right? Everything is unplanned, right?
Sure.
The second problem and frustration I have with quick commerce is because now our lives have become unplanned. We have become slave to this, right? Multiple times during the day, we kind of pressing the button and kind of go about doing it. My view over there is with AI, I think, we will end up making this almost autonomous. What that means is there are things in our household that should never be out of stock. The systems should kind of go about, reordering it for you without you knowing it, right?
Right.
And that's when, the quickness of quick commerce doesn't really matter, right? And it might not happen immediately, but we're going to push the envelope as a frontier technology where, households themselves keep, automatically ordering things.
Absolutely.
Right? But quick commerce as a feature is really good. The next version of it, you really not matter whether it's quick or not, because things will be already in your house and you will never be out of stock in a lot of things.
But tell me, what does the consumer today want? Are they more inclined towards brands? Are they more brand conscious, or do you think they're prioritizing convenience?
I keep reading this and I keep getting different answers, right? I mean, there are times when I read reports which says Gen Z wants new brands, hence we have a lot of new brands. I also feel, every generation comes and, wants their own brands, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to wear what the previous generation were. And I also get confused then when I see things around how influencers will influence, the young's mind to buy whatever, want, right? I mean, The other day I was reading that teenage beauty has become a big market.
Yeah.
Right. And I have a young daughter and I'm just really worried, what happens in 10 years time. She's 3 years now, but when she's a teenager, I don't know what will happen. Right. In a country like ours, right, which is so demographically different, every 100 kilometers. And when we kind of look at across this demographic differences, there is a country which wants everything which the West wants. I mean, if the world is eating peptides, we want to eat peptides. If Korean beauty is allowing you to shape your jaw, we want that new jaw. While there is another country which will buy infinite amount of products if they are sold at 100 to 100 rupees. So you have all sort of India in India.
Absolutely. Farooq, you have also built through multiple internet cycles, like I mentioned, e-commerce, and then you had funding mentors, then AI, of course. Tell me, what have been your biggest takeaways? Because every startup generation, they probably think that, okay, their disruption is bigger than the earlier generations. So what has been your take over the years?
I think the first few cycles that we had from 15 to 18, I think we were still trying to figure out how to solve the reach problem, right? And this is pre-Geo, where not as many consumers were online itself, right? The cost of acquiring a customer used to be ridiculously high. I think post 2018, 2019, I think we now have reach. Right? We have mass reach. We can reach customers, and you can reach them cost effectively. Then another wave of the COVID wave kind of came up, and the COVID wave also ran in like 2-3 cycles. So there was the first wave where if you are a non-essential category, you would essentially die. Right? And if you're a consumer in non-essential category, like we were also classified as non-essential categories. For 90 days, the company didn't have real work to do. And then in this, I say, luck, timing plays a real big role. Companies who had raised before COVID somehow managed to sail that, and then once COVID accelerated a lot of things, then a lot of bad habits kind of got accelerated during COVID, right? And revenge shopping became a thing, spending enormous amount of time online. A lot of fad startups started creating. And then there was this big massive thing of India to the US, India to the West sort of SaaS movement. That kind of died out, all of that. But what worked, and because I invest in a bunch of companies over the last few years, what has worked is, founders who have that innate ability to navigate and build resilient companies, If you don't have that, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, the world always goes through ups and downs. Like, look at 2026. Who thought we would have this sort of energy crisis right now? It's half the year going on, and we still really don't know, what's going to happen. And when rupees in a free fall, and we really don't know, how things are going to turn up. So those macros affect everyone.
Right. You're now part of the Reliance ecosystem. So tell me, what changes when a founder transitions from building independently to operating within a larger organization, a corporate organization? We
did the deal with Reliance in 2019. And one of the reasons I kind of wanted to do is that I wanted to learn from people who know how to build, India scale, planet scale. And Reliance has the scale with nobody else has. And then the scale is not only in terms of everything that we have as a physical infrastructure, but even in terms of the ambition and the scale that we think and we operate at. So that kind of gets me really excited about kind of pushing the boundary for myself as well as the organization. We have been allowed to operate independently as long as we can to continue to serve the larger goals of the organization. So that way, we are fairly independent in what we do, as long as, we are serving the core problems of retail, which we are solving it for not only Reliance, but all companies across the world. Reliance is our primary and first customer in a lot of the problems that we are solving.
You mentioned scale, but tell me, does entrepreneurship become less fun with scale? Because when we think of startups, we think of creativity and chaos, but then you have governance, you have rules to follow, many other systematic, rules and regulations. So do you believe that entrepreneurship perhaps becomes less fun with scale?
Okay, so there is a scale of making the business scale, and then there is a scale so that you attract customers, right? I mean, if I have to do IPO, everything that you said I have to do, it is inescapable.
Yeah.
Every small company has to become a big company, right?
Right.
Otherwise,
that's the ambition. Yeah.
There is this whole gravity of not going anywhere, right? For you to escape that gravity, you will have to become large, and for you to become large, everything that you said, a founder has to learn. I know I will have to learn how to deal with, I know how to deal with private investors. Now I'll have to learn how to deal with public investors, right? So it's almost like a growing up phase.
Right.
The scale which becomes unmanageable or kind of boring is when you have to run a large organization, right? That's kind of the scale when you don't know everybody in the organization, and you kind of become like how do I put it, right? No one wants to hang out with you in your own party, right? That's how you're sponsoring the party, but really no one wants to hang out. So that's kind of a big change, right? Before, you were 10, 12 people, you knew everybody, everyone knew each other, everyone knew what was happening in everyone's life.
Yeah.
When you become large, 1,000 plus, you really don't know beyond maybe the 50, 60 people that work directly with you.
Right.
So that's kind of the miss you have from a startup. Otherwise, everything else, you have to become a bigger company. Otherwise,
there's no choice, basically.
There's no choice.
Yeah. But speaking of India's startup ecosystem, it has also seen massive growth over the last 10 years or so, and it's great for entrepreneurs in India. But I want to ask you, with too much capital, do you think we are making too many artificial businesses, perhaps? I mean, this is just an observation, of course. You can have a different perspective.
Do you have any specific example of an artificial business?
Not really. I just feel like founders today are perhaps just building for the valuation optics.
Okay, so I would assume that most startups founders, when they start, they genuinely start with a mission to solve a problem. There are opportunities to join an ecosystem, like there was a crypto bubble in between where kind of everyone was building crypto startups without really, right? But those are kind of, how do I put it, macro-driven sort of opportunists who come up, right? But all, like, at least in the last 10, 12 years, we've been able to demonstrate that, young people can build massive organizations, right? Which go about listing and, giving meaningful return to everybody in the ecosystem, right? Yeah. There are nefarious actors everywhere. It's just not in startups. You will find them in all sort of, Ponzi scheme manufacturers across in traditional businesses also. But by and large, I don't think, at least in my opinion, we've not found people who start with the bad intent. They might get influenced by bad actors, but overall, I feel we have got genuine people trying to build genuine companies. Mm-hmm. Fads come in, like any fad. Just like when everyone wanted to do gold digging, this also kind of goes about it. But it's part of the problem. I mean, it's part of the process. I mean, we can't avoid it.
Sure. Do you think India is making enough startups, that are global tech models? Because I think we are great at probably replicating global models and localizing for the Indian market, but I'm not too sure if there are too many of the ones that are creating original global, led technology models. So what's your take on that?
So I think we are maybe, 10 years behind China and 15 years behind the US in some sort of the tech cycles. Mm-hmm. So to explain what it is, right? I mean, you had to have companies like Oracle, Sun Microsystems, Nvidia's created to then create the next generation of Google's, Facebook's, and the next generation, right? So we're actually in the first generation of those companies. Now that we have a bunch of listed companies, the next generation companies will get created. So that's why we have a kind of a 10-year sort of a lag in some sense. And similarly with China also, you had multiple companies creating which created the next generation and next generation. So we kind of finished the first decade of the real internet technology companies. I think it's the ambition is very clear. Everyone has identified that we need to make path-breaking companies. We're going to build it. It's just a matter of time. We are a very young country also compared to everyone else, right? But when I look at the last 10 years of how the country has evolved, right? I mean, we got better airports than most countries. It was not a thing, but now we have.
Yeah. No, but when you look at young founders, because you mentioned that you also invest in a lot of founders, like, do you look at the person or do you look at the business idea? What's your take on the startup founders that we have in India today, and when they come to you, for a pitch, what is it that stands out to you?
So I think I've invested maybe around 100 odd companies now. Yeah. And I thought I would be able to, by investing in 100 odd companies, figure out a formula. I thought, maybe pedigree is the answer, or maybe, the business model is the answer, or I feel the market is the answer. I have no clue.
It's a combination of everything.
I have no clue, but in the end, I've kind of, made it very simple, right? I mean, I'm going to bet on the horse, and the horse will probably figure out what the right race is to compete in. Because beyond that, I cannot really control much.
So there's no perfect pitch as such.
I've seen ridiculous pitches end up giving me massive returns, and I've seen fantastic pitches founder turned out to be corrupt, right? So I mean, there's no real kind of simple answer to that problem. And I think by and large, I think I've come down to this, right? Just bet on the horse. Hopefully the horse will figure out where to race and how to win the race.
Right. Farooq, our show is called Leaders of Tomorrow, and I always ask my guests what leadership means to them. So I want to understand, what is your take on leadership as well in 2026?
What does leadership mean in 2026? I think leadership, is not a time-bound answer, but I think what leadership, and especially from my own vantage point, is that, having conviction to move forward, right? The world, everyone else around is going to create a lot of inertia for you to move forward, and just holding the light and moving and keep climbing and keep going forward. And that's a simple way of looking at leadership. Good times, bad times, they're all part of the kind of the journey. And as long as you're able to take step every day and then lead everyone to follow, that's pretty much it. And I think that's kind of been around for centuries, right? I mean, leadership as core principles have not changed, whether it's 2026 or it's 10th century AD.
Absolutely. Well, finally, before I let you go, tell me, for young entrepreneurs, what do you think they underestimate about entrepreneurship, especially since we are living in the era of social media, now AI? What do you think they need to keep in mind if they are stepping into an industry, if they're starting their own business?
Few things I kind of tell founders, right, is what I call kind of the founder problem market fit. A lot of founders get into problems where they have no real passion of solving the problem. And if you're not going to have passion to solve the problem, no matter how much money you have or no matter what you have, you're not going to resonate with the problem, right? You need to love solving the problem, right? Second thing I tell people is, simply don't die. Don't die.
Stay on.
And stay alive, and whatever it takes, because things take time, right? You might want to work fast, but the world is going to take its own time, right? You cannot really, change the world overnight. And the problem with, social media and all of the other, TV shows people watch, there is this whole valley folklore that, things happen overnight.
Right.
Unfortunately, most things don't happen
People are
overnight.
getting very impatient about success as well. Like, they just want success happening tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I think it's again one of those things which is kind of fueled as peer pressure, right? And this whole raising capital has also become like a game, right? I mean, you go through rungs of A, B, C, D. It's almost as if you're qualifying as multiple degrees, right? But these are all self-created. These are not real things. These are all manufactured in our minds. So the answer is don't die, be patient, things happen. Do things that you love. If you don't like what you love, if you don't do what you love, you will find reasons of why it's not working. If you love what you do, you will find reasons of making it work.
Very true, and words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Farooq, for being on the Leaders of Tomorrow podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you had fun.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up today's episode, here's a quick look at our LOT cheat sheet, a quick rundown of the top takeaways from today's episode. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Leaders of Tomorrow Vodcast. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations and keep chasing those big dreams. Until next time, this is Ritwika Gupta signing off.